2 points. 2 points is what's missing for finally celebrate the Champions League position, because Lazio won and Inter lost, which is not surprising as Inter was playing against Napoli. But with this very important win against Udinese, Lazio is getting closer to our incredible goal, our incredible achievement, the Champions League position. And now we face a funny challenge, I would say, because our goal is to reach the Champions League, but now we are third, hoping to see what happens to Juventus. Our goal is to win the next two games and, if possible, close second in Serie A, which would be terrific. Um, so let's see what happens. Alison McKenzie, I know you've been shouting a little bit this weekend, and not for Lazio's goal. So do you think it's achievable finishing in the top two in Serie A this year?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a couple of games left. I think, obviously, it probably depends on what happens to Juventus this week or even today. We're recording this while this appeal is kind of ongoing, but before they've made a decision. But if they do get another points deduction, which it does sound relatively likely at this stage, Lazio is suddenly in second place. And actually, if that happens, we will be officially in the Champions League before we even play Cremonese, because it'd be impossible for Atalanta or Roma to catch us, or Juve. So it's looking good, Vittorio. I told you Udinese was nothing to worry about.
Well, I wanted to talk about that because you said the easiest game was Udinese. I mean, for the moment, it's the only match we won, right? We draw against Lecce, etc. Udinese should have been the team that has nothing to fight for, and instead it was probably the most difficult game, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's I guess that has to change now because Cremonese have now been relegated officially, haven't they? So at home to Cremonese now has to be the simplest game because they're done. But yeah, I mean, I think it was challenging. I mean, you could tell it's going to be challenging because of the fact that of all the kind of so-called big teams in Serie A, they're the only team to go there this season and actually come away with a win. Which is a really impressive home record on their part. I don't think they've lost to anyone at home since January, if I'm right. So yeah, I think it's just really encouraging to see Lazio playing something resembling, the best of Maurizio Sarri's football again, because we've seen in the last month that the defense has suddenly become really soft again. The key players have gone missing too often. They've been really blunt in attack, but yesterday, although it was 1-0 with a penalty, that doesn't really tell the full story, because I thought it was one of the most convincing performances we've seen from Lazio for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, it's true that Lazio scored just one goal. It's true that it was through a penalty, but 61% of ball possession, which is important, but it's not just that, right? Ball possession can say everything, but not the real story of the game. But expected goals, that is something that some of our listeners really love. 2.09 for Lazio, 0.65 for Udinese. So, 4 shot on target for Lazio, 2 for Udinese, 14 for Lazio in total, 12 for Udinese. Silvestri had a couple of very good saves, while Provedel pretty much didn't do nothing. We hit the post once with Romagnoli. I mean, to be honest, finishing 1-0, Lazio deserved definitely more, right, Alasdair? Lazio could and should have scored 2 goals. I mean, I still have in mind the incredible chance Milinkovic Savic missed in front of the goalkeeper. That was an easy one.
What a pass from Alberto.
Yeah.
I mean, that was incredible, because that's like a textbook example of what you need when you're playing against a deep lying team like that. And he took out about 9 players with one pass. It was incredible. Great run from Sergei as well. I mean, the thing is, yeah, we can be critical of him not finishing that chance, or I think there was another one earlier in the game too, but it has been encouraging to see him getting back into the right positions again. And he seems to actually be working his way into games more. I think previously he was just going missing far too often, and I think we're seeing him not at his best, but showing slightly more encouraging signs recently. The, the I think the criticisms we can have are kind of what you're talking about there. It's the same old problem of, okay, if you are dominating a game statistically, you are having most of the ball, you are creating chances. We've got to be more decisive in the final third than we have been, and not rely on a controversial penalty. We can get onto that to actually score the winning goal. So if we're being critical, it would be that. But then again, it's just, I don't know, the recent matches, it's just felt like they've been far less able to pull teams around, pull defenses around, create problems, get into spaces. Whereas yesterday, it felt like the team was functioning a lot better as a unit. The balance was better. The defense was great yesterday. I thought Casale and Romagnoli were excellent. And another clean sheet. So yeah, it was good. A really good performance.
Yeah, you talk pretty much about everything. We can close the podcast now, but okay. X1 asked, we had a couple of questions, which when Lazio's winning is not that common, but X1 asked us, Provedel is one clean sheet away from leveling Buffon for the most clean sheet in a season. What are your thoughts about this, considering he went from playing for Spezia to become one of the best goalkeepers? Again, yesterday, Provedel didn't do pretty much nothing. So, yes, he get a clean sheet. But as you were mentioning, Casale was astonishing again. We talked about this because in the last couple of games, our defense made a couple of stupid mistakes. Yesterday, they were laser focused, and you could see it, right? Casale was perfect. Romagnoli made a couple of nice tackle. Lazar and Hizai on the wingers were great. Honestly, this is the most surprising record this team has, right? Because arriving second or fighting for the second position is surprising, unbelievable. But if last summer, on August, someone would tell us, hey, Lazio will do a record of clean sheets next season, I would never, ever believe it.
Yeah. This is a team that not that long ago, this was a big problem area, of course. And I think the key thing has been the way that the team has been able to not eliminate, but definitely reduce the number of individual errors we're seeing from players, defenders in games that are costly. And just the kind of, like I've just mentioned, the balance of the team feels better defensively, like they're getting a bit more protection. So even if there are errors, that doesn't necessarily have to end in complete disaster every time. And obviously the exception is, the goal against Milan, for example, passing out from the back and that kind of stuff. But yeah, Provedel, I mean, it's not just guy coming from Spezia to Lazio and setting this record. It's a guy coming to Lazio to be a second choice, starting the season on the bench and then working his way into the team and then setting this record. So we can't take our eyes off the fact that he wasn't even supposed to be the number one at Lazio this season, and he's about to do this. It's an incredible story. I mean, it's not all about him, like you say. It's a team effort and a defensive effort, but regardless of that, Provedel himself has been an extraordinary success story.
Do you think it's a coincidence that yesterday I watched the match wearing this new shirt and we won again? I don't think so. But anyway, guys, I don't know if you have been lucky enough to get this 10 years anniversary shirt. I think it's sold out online. So if you've been one of them, you've been lucky. Alasdair, David asked us, when Cataldi got injured, we start to getting bad results. Do you agree with this, guys? I thought it's not a coincidence that yesterday with Vecino back, our defense pretty much didn't concede nothing. I thought we lost that balance without Cataldi. With Marcos Antonio, we didn't have that balance. We weren't defending. Our midfield weren't defending enough. With Vecino back, we found that balance. And again, I'm not surprised that with Vecino back, we didn't concede anything and we create a lot of chances.
Yeah, we talked a bit about that with Cataldi last week, I think. I don't think it's a coincidence that him being out coincided with the form going down. I mean, I think he offers a lot to this team, both sides of the ball and through his leadership as well, and just the experience of being in these positions compared to Antonio, for example, who's very new to everything. But yeah, I think Vecino I don't see as a long-term option in that role. I think Sarri has kind of had to adapt everything to this season, and he's kind of accidentally ended up there. I don't think that was really the plan. So I think he's proven to be a very useful and astute signing because he's had the versatility to play in different positions in midfield, and of course he was free as well. So he's been a good signing, but I'm not sure that's going to be the long-term option with Lazio, and I wouldn't be surprised. Well, we touched on the so-called midfield revolution last week as well, but I wouldn't be surprised if next season this midfield does look very different to the one we're seeing now.
Yes, I agree. I mean, Milinkovic is probably leaving, so I think something will change there. Talking about Vecino, our friend Carsten Krog asked us how good was the signing of Vecino last summer. Yeah, I thought it was a good signing. I would say Provedel was the best signing, considering how much we spent for him and his performance and his result. Talking about Giuntoli, I think there's simple rumors. I mean, he's been linked heavily with Juventus. I don't see him coming to Lazio, leaving Napoli to come to Lazio. But Vecino was a good signing. And again, I think we mentioned this already, Alasdair. This summer transfer was probably one of the best of the last couple of years or so for Lazio.
Yeah, it'll be interesting when we do our end of season awards podcast, the yearly tradition. There have been some years where we've kind of really struggled to name a signing of the season. But this year it will actually be quite competitive. I think in the past it's either been like very obvious because there's only one real contender, or it's kind of nobody. So yeah, it's definitely competitive. Casali and Romagnoli have both been fantastic. Vecino's been good. Provedel's been good. You know, list goes on. So it was a good mercato that we can look back on happily. I mean, I think that people are still messaging us asking about Vice Mobile, and that is an ongoing thing that will never end. But I thought one of the more interesting questions we've got was about if we would take any players from the teams who've been relegated so far. I mean, I guess that's Cremonese and Sampdoria at the moment. I don't know if you've had any time to think about this yet, but
Carnesecchi, can that be an option?
Well, he's still an Atalanta player, though, isn't he?
Valeri,
I was thinking that it kind of, yeah, maybe it depends a bit on Maximiano's situation, because if he goes, and I can't imagine he's going to be happy to stick around as a number 2 for very long.
No.
Then maybe someone like Audero could be a good option as a number 2 if he would be happy to do it, because he's a very experienced Serie A keeper. He's been around the block. He's only 26, I think. Valeri, maybe? Cremonese?
Yeah, Valeri would be a good signing, I think. I mean, we've been talking about Valeri all season long, so if he's available, definitely I would go and sign him.
I think he's in the last year of his deal as well, so the combination of him being relegated and being in the last year means that wouldn't have to be an expensive signing. I quite like his story though as well, because he was playing in the 4th division like 3 years ago. He's worked his way all the way up from the bottom.
And he was coming from the Lazio Youth Academy.
Yeah, exactly. And we need a left-footed left back. And so if it's between getting him in on the cheap or spending however much it is on Pellegrini, I think he's quite a good option.
Yeah, well, there have been rumors about Lazio signing, selling Milinkovic to Juventus and maybe get in the deal Pellegrini for a cheaper fee. That could be an option. So that could be interesting. Obviously, we're going to talk deeply about Calciomercato. Don't know if after the season ends, but when we get the Champions League qualification, because that's a lot of money, Alasdair, especially for a club like Lazio. So that's why it's so important for us. And let's not forget, guys, that if Lazio finish in top 2, we'll get even the money for the Supercoppa Italiana. That next year change formats. It's going to be 4 teams the top two of the Serie A and the finalist and the winner of the Coppa Italia. Without forgetting that Inter is the finalist of the Coppa Italia. So even if we finish third, just below Inter, we are going to get there anyway. So that's a lot of money. We're playing South Arabia. It looks like something around 20 million euros for the 14. So that's good money for us. And that's going to be really important to change the team because let's be honest, Alistair, I wouldn't call this a miracle if Lazio reached the Champions League. But especially in the last month or so, we saw how Lazio struggled. We lost Cataldi. We are not talking about Xavi or Iniesta or, I don't know, another great player. We lost Cataldi and our midfield really struggled. And when we lost even Vecino, it was a nightmare. This tells you how much we need signing, we need depth. This is the biggest issue of this team. We have 11, 30, 40 good players, but if we lose someone of the starters, especially from midfield or onwards, we struggle. We don't have a Vision Mobile, we just have three wingers, we don't have a playmaker, and so on. So with that money, we have to sign players who can start, not only be on the bench, right?
Yes, definitely. I think that's a huge point to improve in the squad. It's quite a good time. We've actually just had a question coming in from Tom saying, why does Zaccagni look so exhausted? We only have one game a week. Well, yeah, we only have one game a week, but these guys, we've been using the same kind of 15 players all season long. This has been the longest season on record. It started last August and is going on until June. So it doesn't really matter if you're playing two competitions or not by this stage. If you're playing 90 minutes of every single game and the season has been 50, 60 games long, you're going to start to tire at some point. I think because Lazio, the perception is that Lazio kind of decided to bow out of Europe to concentrate on the top four. People are expecting that because there are still Italian teams left in Europe, Lazio should be a lot fresher. But that's forgetting point we made last week about how few players Lazio have used compared to every single other team in Europe, not just compared to Italy. It's really been a small pool of players that Sarri's been using this season. So I'm not surprised they're tired. And I feel like, could he do more? Could he give more minutes to others? Perhaps, but then the performances are gonna drop. Are you going to lose points along the way if you're doing that? Probably. And then he'd be criticized for doing that. So it's a tough one for him to juggle.
I mean, one thing we have to mention is that Roma and Fiorentina, for example, are in the European finals, but they are far away from the goals in Serie A, right? Let's not forget, Roma this summer was considered a team that should fight for the Scudetto. They weren't even close. They were never close to that. Fiorentina was a team that should have been fighting for the fourth position in Serie A. They have never been close. They made the decision to compete and try to reach their goal through the European competition. Lazio made the opposite decision. So I think that it was a very exhausting season, right? With the World Cup in the middle and so on. We made different choices. And let's not forget that Lazio didn't spend the same amount of money that Fiorentina, Roma, and the other teams did. So this is important, but we have to improve our roster. We have to improve our players because we didn't talk about Felipe Anderson. He came off after the first half, and with Pedro playing, Lazio was much more dangerous. But let's not forget that Felipe Anderson didn't miss a single game this season. And yes, Lazio plays every once a week, but if you never rotate, if you play every game, even if you play once a week, you arrive in May that you're destroyed.
Yeah, if you look at the kind of accumulated minutes on the pitch, it'll be a hell of a lot, especially Anderson.
Yeah.
I think he's been the real characterization of that, hasn't he? Because the last couple of games we've seen him getting taken off, and that's been something that's very rarely happened this season. He's been Sarri's kind of go-to guy, but I think he can see now that he's tiring. And obviously, yesterday he was on I think he was on a yellow card as well, wasn't he? So I think the risk is a tiring guy on a yellow card who's not very good at tackling anyway. get him off there. It's a Simone Inzaghi move, but get him off that pitch.
Alasdair, we didn't talk about the penalty.
Okay, go on. Referee Campanile.
I thought it was a soft penalty. I want to be really honest. And I was fearing that the VAR could take it off. But watching the replay, there's the contact. Now, you can argue that it's Ciro moving the leg towards the player, but the contact, it's clear, right? So it's soft, but we saw worse penalty given.
Yeah. No, I agree with that assessment. I think you're right. It's soft. I think it's what you would call like cunning striker play. Chiro's definitely making the most of it, but he's this experienced, seasoned striker who knows exactly what to do in those situations. When you see the replay, Messina throws a leg out. Yes, he then tries to withdraw that leg. But if you're dangling a leg in the box to a striker going past you, then you're running the risk. The question of whether there's enough contact to bring someone down, I'm sorry, but in football, that's long gone anyway. I mean, how often are any of the contacts in the box genuinely enough to bring people down? So, yeah, for me, I would prefer if in the sport something like that wasn't a penalty. But I don't think it's a massively inconsistent decision with other things that have gone on, to be honest. And I'm a bit surprised how much kind of outrage there seems to have been after this. And to be honest, I don't think Lazio need to be biting with this stuff as well. I just don't get why they're, trying to go point proving on social media. And some people seem to love this stuff. But come on, I mean, just rise above it, be better. I mean, it's a penalty decision and a bit of controversy, and then it all blows over. You don't need to.
Can I say something? I thought it was more penalty the chance before of Ciro when Silvestri made an incredible save. But I thought, was it Udoji, I think, who tackled him after he shot? I thought that was a clear penalty. I mean, he missed completely the ball. He doesn't touch it. He goes straight to Ciro. I thought that was much more penalty than the other one, to be honest.
Yeah, and they didn't even mention that in the commentary because on DAZN here in Italy, they have Luca Marelli, their kind of refereeing expert, I guess, who they go to whenever there's a decision. And I don't think they even asked him about that.
He talked about that, and he said he's sliding. He's not going towards Ciro. Yeah, but he hits him. Come on. I mean, who cares? Yeah, he's sliding. He's an idiot. Let's not forget what Carlo Mazzone always said. Sliding in the penalty box is a dangerous decision. It's a stupid decision. I mean, for me, that was penalty all the time. Again, I repeat, it was more penalty this one than the one they conceded. So anyway, I continue to insist saying that in a match where Lazio had 61 ball possession, 12 shot on target, Udinese didn't have a single chance, you cannot complain about the ref.
Yeah. I mean, I think, shoe was on the other foot, you would definitely be complaining about the ref. But it's part of the game. Like if there's a controversial decision, people complain about it, and there's a big uproar for 24 hours, and then it goes away. It's kind of rinse and repeat every time. So, but yeah, I think the result was the right one. I think these things blow over quickly, and you don't necessarily need to try and stoke the flames of it. It's just, it is what it is.
Talking about controversial decision, what do you make of Basic coming in for Zaccagni?
Sorry, I lost you for a sec. Can you say that again?
What do you make about Basic coming in place of Zaccagni in the last couple of minutes? That was surprising, right? Sarri changing to a sort of 4-4-2.
Yeah, I mean, he's done it a couple of times before, hasn't he?
At the derby as well.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, I think it's something we've talked about already, isn't it? When Lazio are in poor form, is that he's so wedded to the 4-3-3 that he's been very inflexible to actually ask different questions of the opposition. And I guess he wasn't doing that for that reason, was he? I mean, when he is changing to 4-4-2 and bringing on a big centre mid for a tricky winger, he's not doing that to get the goals, is he? He's doing that to to try and help the defense and soak up the pressure towards the end of the match.
But I thought Basic played well. I thought he created something. I know it's a little bit late, but he's taking a little bit his chances, right? I saw some improvement from Basic. Obviously, it's tough to have an impact when you play the last 5-6 minutes, especially when you're trying to keep the result, not scoring another goal, etc., like he did against Sassuolo. But it was good to see him playing. I don't know if Sadi consider Basic a winger now and say he's not fit to play in the center. He needs to play on the left side. But definitely there was an improvement. Let's not forget that Pellegrini wasn't on the bench. He had a little slightly injury. So that didn't give that many options because in the last couple of games, our substitution were Pellegrini and Lazio coming in, and that was it, right? And without Marcos Antonio and Vecino, we didn't have that many options. So, yeah, it was surprising to see Basic coming in instead of Zaccagni. I thought maybe Cancellieri could have a chance there. We were talking about not giving that many opportunities to the other guys. So that was, I don't know. Do you think that's a message to saying they're not ready to play in these key matches? Or it was just, I wanted to defend it, so I brought in Basic to keep the ball?
Yeah, I think it's more the second one. It's a tactical choice. I think you're not going to expect Sarri to be throwing on the kids at 1-0 in a venue where none of the big teams have won all season. I think it'd be a bold move. I mean, France won the World Cup with what's his name, Matuidi, playing on the left wing. So it does happen. Get a big, hard tackling central midfielder on the left wing and see what happens. But yeah, no, I think it was definitely to soak up pressure. Now I think the next game, Cremonese at home on a Sunday night, 6:00 kickoff. It's a great kickoff time, I would say, for getting a big crowd into the stadium, hopefully.
There's a problem. There's the Giro d'Italia in Rome.
Of course, yeah.
So it's going to be complicated to reach the Stadio Olimpico. So if you're planning to go, take your time because it's not going to be easy. But, we're all going to go with this shirt to celebrate the 10 years anniversary. Lulic should be at the Stadio Olimpico. Miro Klose should be at the Stadio Olimpico. Hernanes. A lot of players that play that game should be. So it's going to be a big party. And again, we need 2 points. I don't want to see what happens to Juventus, but 2 points or win against Cremonese would make it for Lazio to get back in the Champions League. So it would be really important. Do you expect rotation, or do you think Sarri will play the best team available?
He has to play the best team available. I mean, it's they have to be really aggressive here. I think this is a Cremonese team who've just been relegated. Their confidence will be low. They've been pretty poor this season anyway. I think particularly on the road, if I remember correctly.
Well, I remember a match in Rome where Udinese didn't play that bad, right?
Where Udinese didn't play that bad.
Cremonese, sorry.
Did they beat Roma?
Of course. Coppa
Can't even
Italia.
remember that now. Oh, of course. Coppa, yeah. The Ballardini effect, of course.
Yeah.
No, you're right. But the Coppa run was very at odds with the rest of their season.
Yeah.
It was a bit strange. Yeah, of course. But yeah, I mean, I think that, they're hopefully big crowds, full strength team, and just attack them, get in their faces from the start. And they need to hopefully try and get an early goal and make quick work of this, because it has the potential to be a really special day, because like you say, it's the marking of the 10th anniversary, it's the legends back in town, it's the opportunity to completely secure Champions League football, which, like I said, may have already been, secured at the Tavolino, shall we say? But let's wait and see. And I think it's a fantastic. It could be a fantastic occasion for the last game of the season, home game this season.
Not only. Do you know what's going to be next Monday?
I don't know. I don't even know when that is.
29th of May.
The 29th of May.
Yeah,
Is it another anniversary
of course.
of the, I don't know. Tell
Okay,
me.
I'm leaving. I mean, it's 6 years of the podcast. Come on.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Okay, guys, if you want
Sorry,
to
podcast
replace
birthday.
if you want to replace Alasdair, send me an email. I mean, come on.
6 years. Really?
2017, 29th of May. I think we were celebrating Lazio getting out of the race for the Champions League, probably.
Oh my God. Wow. Well, there we go. Still talking to each other somehow.
Incredible. Not sure after this pod, but yeah.
Well, that's good. That's good timing then. It's falling on a Monday, a recording day, so we can celebrate, get the balloons out.
Maybe the Champions League. So, yeah.
Yeah, nice. What's been your favorite moment of the 6 years, Vittorio?
It's tough. It's tough. I don't know if the Supercoppa Italia, when we won against Juventus, thanks to Alessandro Murcia's goal, or when we celebrate the Champions League qualification.
I think the Coppa Italia final was great as well. 2019. That was
Against Atalanta. Yep.
that was a good moment. That was my first year in Rome as well. So you're welcome. A few good derby wins in that time. We've had quite a lot going on.
Yeah. 6 years. Well, we're going to do a special podcast next Monday about that, right?
Sure.
So you have plenty of time. And even you, listener, what's your best moment about the Lazio Lounge? Write it in the comments on our social platform, and we'll, if it doesn't die before, we're going to pick the best one. So
hopefully by then my voice will have slightly returned and won't quite be so husky.
Who knows? But anyway, don't miss the next podcast. It's going to be huge. It's going to be great. Hopefully, not only celebrating the 6th year of Lazio Lounge, but hopefully, crossing fingers, the Champions League qualification, which would be huge. Right?
Let's wait and see. I mean, it's a hell of an opportunity. Beat Cremonese at home, who are already relegated, and you're in the Champions League. You couldn't have asked for a better kind of setup than this. That said, we all have memories of beat Crotone and you're in the Champions League from a few years ago. Let's not dwell on that. But I think we need to see it as not a foregone conclusion. This is still a serious game that needs to be won. So let's hope that the team approach it in the right way. But it was definitely encouraging, this performance against Udinese, and it's going to restore a bit of confidence and belief in the squad, hopefully, as well, after a pretty tricky run.
Yeah, definitely. The best performance in the last month or so. And it was relieving even seeing how Ciro celebrate the end of the match, right? You can tell that the team was quite nervous, were quite feeling the pressure. So winning that match maybe took off the pressure out of the team. And so next Sunday is going to be a better match, and we're going to see Lazio winning and getting those points that are missing, right? So thanks, Alasdair, even without voice, for joining me.
You're welcome.
And we're going to be back next Monday. Take care, guys. And don't miss the next podcast, obviously. Celebration podcast. Ciao, ciao.
Ciao, ciao.